Hey guys, this is Luke Eccles with Off the Record, and today we have my buddy,
Dr. Octoroc. I don't know why I said it like that.
It's a dope name.
It's a dope name, according to Seth Rogen.
According to quoted Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
First in my dream and then on YouTube.
Yes, it came true.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. So tell us a little bit about, I find it very interesting where you came from as far as 8-bit and kind of like, so...
You can call me by my real name. It's not a mystery anymore.
I didn't know if we were hiding you.
I'm not Daft Punk.
Okay. So Levi and I went to high school together, and both of us said, you did what? Did you do a year or 2 years in college?
2.5.
Okay, so you did a half more than I did. But it's interesting because we grew up in that generation where we were just told, like, you can't do anything if you don't go to college. And you're kind of like my flagship story. I tell people all the time, like, you want to learn something, you want to learn a trade, like, go and learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell them a little bit about. Let's start with kind of like your work history, and then I want to dive into music after that.
Well, work history isn't anything too great before I turned 30, because there was just the retail and restaurants, sous chef roles and.
Yeah, but when did you start? You started doing the 8-bit stuff, though. That was...
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've kind of been doing since I was a kid on some level.
Right.
So, when I was a teenager, it was like some MIDI program that my mom would use for composition.
Okay.
And then I'd just find the sounds in the general MIDI library that sounded like a Nintendo or a Game Boy type of a lead sound or a bass sound.
Before all these kids just had everything at full access.
Yeah, we didn't have plugins.
We had nothing.
We didn't even have samples.
Yeah.
At home, we had General MIDI,
or like Fisher Price stuff.
Like the worst sounding.
Yeah,
it has a nostalgic quality to it, but it's not good.
Right.
But yeah, I was just working with those kinds of sounds. I would do a little bit of either recreating existing video games or trying to kind of do my own original video game soundtracks for no actual purpose.
Yeah,
I mean, I would have little fun side projects where I'd create video games and certain programs, but it was more about the music to me. I just wanted like a slappy, riff or something like that in a track, and a little bit of that, and then anything involving piano and maybe some orchestral instruments.
Now, you don't read sheet music though. Did you just teach yourself?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, I do know a music staff, and I know what the notes are.
Gotcha.
But sight reading is something that I just could never do.
Same.
I can't say I tried all that hard to learn. I did give it a
good old college try.
A half college try, if you will. But I kind of picked things up by ear when I was younger, and as soon as I realized I could do that, I was like, I don't really feel like putting in the work to be able to read music. And fortunately, my mom could sight read. So for all these years, I had piano lessons. I probably went through 5 different piano teachers. And it wasn't until the last one that they noticed that I wasn't actually reading from the music.
Really?
Because up until then, I would have her play the piece, and I'd just get an idea of how it sounded, and I'd learn it from her playing it, and then I'd go in and play the piece, and I'd pretend I was reading it, and they were none the wiser. But my last teacher was a jazz musician, so he's
like, yo, I'm on to you.
He saw through the charade.
He's like, I saw how you improv those 2 notes on that line.
And the way he decided to resolve this situation was to put a piece of music in front of me. Very simple, but I had never seen it before. And he put this piece of music in front of me and said, I want you to play just that first line. And I stared at it for about 5 minutes. And I was like, I can't do it. And he's like, okay, I don't want to waste your money or my time.
That's funny.
We're done here. He quit on me.
Wow. Now, did you grow up playing in church? Because I know you went to Beth Yeshua, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah, we had our little youth band, and consisting of very fine musicians. Actually, most of them still play music to this day.
I mean, we still have the Shay. Well, what does she go with? Shay Wilbur?
I wasn't going to include her in that group.
Oh, okay, all right.
She doesn't play an instrument.
Well, I guess.
She plays these.
She does.
Plays her vocal
she
cord.
did pick up guitar in high school ridiculously fast.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
She didn't try to master or anything.
She's never known though.
No, but she started playing, and I was like, I remember someone being like, how long has she been playing? And she's like, sorry guys, I've only been playing for like 2 months.
2 days.
Like, yeah, 2 days. And she had a decent strumming pattern. And like everybody that played guitar in the crowd was like, damn it. Like what? How'd she learn how to play I mean, she was an amazing guitarist.
I mean, in fairness, it was in her blood. Her dad was like in a rock band in the
So we
70s
yeah
and 80s.
so the school we went to, Delaware County Christian School. Trust me, they're not calling us back for any alumni stuff. So they're not going to want to shout out
because they know we don't have money.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. But this girl that was in my grade, Sharon, her dad was in the band Lamb, correct?
Yeah, Lamb.
And it was funny because I told my dad that I was like, "Have you ever heard of the band Lamb?" And before I could say anything else, he's like, "Oh." He's like, I saw Lamb play like 3 times when I was when I became a Christian in college, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, they were like really big in the Christian. I mean, there was barely any Christian music back then, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if there was even a genre of Christian music or Christian rock at the time.
I think it was like Al Green.
There were just bands that sang Christian lyrics, like Phil Keggy, Lamb, Keith Green, of course.
Yeah, or Keith Green. Yeah.
He was huge.
Yeah. But it's funny because I was like, oh yeah, like his daughter's in my class. My dad's like, what? Like he was blown away.
Well, it was funny because we actually have two kind of like 2 degrees of separation situations. We have Lamb with Sharon, and then Nate Yesner's uncle was in the Police.
Yeah, he is the guitarist for the Police.
That's the guy that I played in a youth band with.
Really?
He played drums. I played, piano, and a couple other people played with us. Eli played with us.
Okay.
The
guitarist for the Police actually just played here at the Colonial.
Oh, really? Andy Summers?
Yeah, he played. I want to say it was like I think it might have been this year. It was in the last like 6 months.
Yeah. So apparently there was a point in time. I want to say it was like 5 to 8 years ago. A while back, where the Police were either thinking about getting together or doing a reunion tour or something. But apparently, Andy and Sting don't get along with Stuart Copeland. So I was like, Nate, this is your shot, man. You're an excellent drummer. You're better than Stuart Copeland ever was. You should be in the Police. He's just like, I don't want to play drums anymore.
Yeah, and then Sting's like, you know what? I'm just gonna make a record with Shaggy.
Like that was a
checkmate.
Yeah,
which he did. If anybody knows that, like they made a pretty. It's a very interesting record.
I have not heard that one. Honestly,
I listened to some of the jams. They did some touring, and they did a Tiny Desk concert series that was like, it was just very. It's like, who would have thought Sting and Shaggy?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have paired them up.
No, but so that's fun. So you grew up playing piano in church.
Yeah, and introductory level like music composition, arrangement on a computer. That's kind of the birth of the music I do now, because everything I do is on the computer. I could hook up a keyboard to my Nintendo or Game Boy and play it that way. A lot of people do it like that. They'll do it live. It's fun, but I prefer to. It's kind of like an engineering / art project for me. I like the coding that goes into all the parameters that control the notes. Like putting that into a file and then playing it through. And I can play a live show if I want. I'll just be playing from the source files.
Right.
But 8-bit was something. I was always going this direction.
Yeah.
I didn't know what how the full extent to which it would go, but I'd always come back to that kind of a sound.
Right.
Playing Nintendo growing up a lot
for hours on end.
Many hours.
As many hours as our parents would let us.
Exactly. Well, so here's what's funny. So another fun fact is that our very first video game system that Jude and I, my brother and I got, was the ColecoVision. And the way we got it was that our grandfather was working. He was managing a plastics manufacturing plant that made the cases for the ColecoVision.
Interesting.
And he ended up getting one, I guess. I don't know if he got one through work. If
back
they gave
when we
one.
actually made stuff in the United States.
Yeah, back when we actually. I was literally about to say good old American made.
Yeah.
So that was our first system, and then he got us a Nintendo for a Hanukkah because he saw how much we enjoyed that. I know it's going to be very confusing to people to hear that we went to a Christian school and then I brought up Hanukkah.
Yeah, it happens.
We're not going to get into that.
We're not going to get into the Messianic Jewish stuff.
Also, the tattoos.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusing things in my life. But anyway, my dad was kind of against it. He was like, I don't want, because back in the day it was like, oh, video games are going to rot their brains. They need to read. They had a rule in our house where it's like for every hour of productive something we did, we got to play an hour of video games.
Right.
So Jude and I would draw for an hour and then play video games for an hour. It was the perfect childhood.
My grandfather was always like, "You're gonna get square eyes." Keep square.
I didn't realize your eyes like took on the shape of whatever you were looking at.
I was like, "Come on, that's why I love lying to children, but it's always something believable, so they're just confused." But I was just like,
just believable enough that they'll believe it then and there, but just unbelievable enough that they can't be angry at you later.
right, exactly.
That's like the perfect balance to find. That's like the uncle, there's like dad jokes. There's like the uncle like riffing.
Yeah, that's me.
What I'd call it. That's you 100%.
One of my big life regrets was, so when we were in high school, we because it was a Christian school, we had chapel every week, and I always dressed to the nines. And
shirt half untucked.
I was always
every time.
The teachers were always hounding me.
Every kid had constantly had t-shirts made like tuck that shirt in, tuck that shirt in, tuck that shirt in.
I always would just mismatch as much as I could just to piss them off because it was technically in dress code.
That might have been the first fun tie I'd seen in my life.
Yeah, exactly. Like horrible looking ties. But so we did a rendition of Switchfoot Only Hope with you on piano.
I forgot about that. We have played together.
Yeah, you on piano, and then Emily McIntyre playing violin.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was going to play guitar, but I remember getting like really sick that week.
Is that why I had to sing the high part in the song?
I think so.
I remember everybody's like, "Where's that disembodied voice coming from?"
Yeah, because it was like November or something. So it was like right when like flu season was hitting, and I got sick. But like this is where we messed up because we did this version of Only Hope. And nobody knew the song at all.
No.
And
you, me, and maybe Eli.
Yeah, Eli. Like our group of friends knew it.
I don't even know if Emily knew it. She just
she was like, "Oh, this is a great song." But we did this rendition, and I ended up through somebody we know from high school. They played at a Christian festival, Fallout Fest, and I ended up meeting like Reliant K at that festival because they were like 18. They were literally like a year older than me at that time, and I met Switchfoot, and we met them first at the Electric Factory. We went to see Delirious, so they remembered me because I was probably the only person they knew in Pennsylvania, and they were only. I want to say those guys are maybe like 47, 46. So they're only like 4 years older than us, 5 years older than us.
Oh, yeah.
And so I met them and I met Tim, the bassist at Electric Factory. And I think I told them about Junk Fusion. I was like, "Oh, it's like this funk jazz band." And they're like, "A high school band that plays funk jazz." They're like, "We got to hear this." So then I went to Purple Door with...
Only ever released an EP.
Right. Yeah. I went to Purple Door with Katie Kimmy. She reminded me of this because I posted a picture with Steven that was in Reliant K. He was the drummer. I put it on Facebook. I'm friends with him. And I was like, "You remember this?" And he's like, "Oh, man, that's a throwback." And then Katie Kimmy was like, "I'm pretty sure I took that picture." But I had the lyrics and the chords written out on a piece of paper that you wrote of the song.
Yeah.
And I
remember that.
Yeah, as a present, I was like, I'm gonna have them sign this and give it to Levi.
I remember that.
And I remember like
I still had that in my possession up until maybe 8 years ago. I don't know what happened to it. It probably lost it in one of my many moves.
This will be a good clip to send to Switchfoot. But
if I happen to dig it up at some point,
dude,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's still in a box somewhere.
If you can find it, that'd be awesome.
I haven't opened in years.
Yeah, so I basically took it.
That'd be at least worth $20 now.
At least 20. John Foreman, we're gonna auction it off. So
put a picture of Kermit the Frog on it.
Right, Kermit the Frog. He's probably the only one that knows that joke. There were only 3 people in that band at that time, so I had all 3 of them sign it. And John's like, "What is this?" And I told him about the arrangement. He's like, "That sounds really." He's like, "Can you record that and send that to me?" And if it's like, not like 2000.
Kind of the moment was past. Yeah.
Well, it was 2000, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And I was in high school and I was dumb, so I was I can't record a song. It's gonna cost me lots of money. And then like 4 years later, like Mandy Moore comes out with the A Walk to Remember. Yeah. It was like exactly kind of what we played, only with a full orchestra kind of sound.
Yeah.
But that is the one thing where I'm like, "Hey kids, like if you want to do something cool, you get an opportunity, like just do it." Like it would have been big. But so you started putting out some 8-bit music.
Yeah, my first album was kind of, it wasn't even a planned album. It was, so my brother does illustration, and I'd say once every 50 projects he has, there's something that he's like, oh, I'll get in touch with Levi, see if he wants to get in on this. Because sometimes he'll do like an interactive ad that needs music or some kind of coding that he can't do, but I can do with my limited knowledge. And one of the projects he was working on was basically a holiday card for the I Am 8-Bit. I don't know what they call themselves. It's not like a company or a foundation. Right. But they do they put on art shows, they release records now, all these kinds of things. And their idea for a holiday card was instead of mailing a physical, just paper card, they were going to create a CD that had a bunch of people who do chip tunes or video game type music cover a different Christmas song and put it all together on this kind of a medley album.
This, yeah.
So I did one track for that, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I was like,
what track was it?
I want to. It was We Three Kings.
Okay.
But I did it. Yeah. I called it We Three Konami, and because it was really fast paced, like any kind of a Nintendo game that like Ninja Turtles or something.
Right.
First one that comes to mind when I think of the company. So I did that track, and then I had some fun. So I decided to do maybe a dozen total. Put them online, just as a free download. I wasn't even planning on releasing a physical album at that point. At the time, I had just gotten Einstein, who was my corgi. May he rest in peace.
R.I.P., buddy.
We're both recently bereaved here.
Yeah. We both. You got Einstein what year?
I got him in 2008 or 2009, I think.
I think it was. I got Shiloh in 2009, so I think you got him it was
around the same time.
Yeah, it was me. I think you got him it was 7 months before or something like that. Yeah. It was somewhere around the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had just gotten him, and he had crystals in his bladder.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which was a problem his entire life.
Pure breeds,
full-blown bladder stones.
Pure breeds.
Every 5 to 8 years, he needed surgery. Not that he didn't have
poor guy.
Plenty of other medical emergencies throughout his life.
Diapers he was always wearing.
It was not looking good near the end. He still had a decent quality of life, but he was wearing diapers, and it looked very sad.
Remember when you first put them on him and the look he had? It was just he looked so sad.
Yeah. Well, so I just gotten that diagnosis, and I was I was working 30 hours a week at the time, part-time at Wawa.
Wawa, yeah.
And I'm how am I going to afford this? At the time it was a grand or two, and I was that's a lot of money for somebody working at a freaking Wawa in their early to mid 20s.
Probably $4,000 now.
Oh, definitely be $4,000 now, yeah. So basically, I just posted because at the time I had a blog, as we all did.
Right.
And I posted on the blog hey, my dog needs surgery. I don't asking for donations or whatever. I was but if you download the album, if you download it,
donate whatever you want for the album.
If you got the free download and you liked it, if you could throw $10 or whatever, that'd be super appreciated. Whatever. And then Jude's oh, you know what you should do? He's CDs are pretty cheap to make. Just tell them if they donate $12 or $15 or more or whatever, you'll send them a physical album. I was that's a great idea. So I did that, and then Jude posted on his blog too. And at the time, he had a lot more viewers and readers than I did. So he got, between him and me, and then MySpace, I think at the time. I don't even know if MySpace was a thing at the time. I think Friendster was still on the way out at that point.
Wow.
But yeah, basically the donations came rolling in, and I ended up actually no. Originally, I was going to hand make the CDs. I had an Epson printer that could print on CDs. And
I had that. Yeah,
I figured I'd sell a few dozen, and it would take me a day to put them out. And I got 50 donations in the first day that I had to send albums out.
That's awesome.
So I ended up just getting it professionally made by CD Baby or whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that was the first album. I also doubled the track.
Okay.
The track count, so it has 18 tracks total. That album plus a bonus track on the CD.
Right.
And that was kind of, okay, that was fun, but I didn't do another physical album for many years after that. I did a couple of digital download albums that had varying levels of success. None of my music sells well. It's a very, very niche audience.
Right.
There's probably at most 2,000 people out there that would even want it, let alone are willing to purchase anything I do. That's kind of my rough estimate right now. But I enjoy it, and it's basically a self-sustaining hobby.
Right.
Which is all I need it to be.
But then after that, you started getting into doing some 8-bit animation, correct?
That is correct, yeah. So that was kind of the next step. And I also did some music during that time as well.
Yeah. I know you did so I know you like sometimes. So you can talk about you talk about the projects. I don't remember all of them, but I remember like, the Jersey Shore.
So that was the first one I did for College Humor. So even
R.I.P. Are they still around?
No, they have a different name now. I forget what they're called. They still a lot of the actors and like people behind the scenes that were there during the College Humor days are still around.
Okay.
Some of them even like I think Pete Holmes did work with College Humor before he started doing stand up and got his own freaking show.
That makes sense.
That guy's hilarious, by the way. But
yeah.
So I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But I want to say he was in College Humor videos at least. I don't know if he was guest starring or if he was on their roster. Anyway, but even before that, there were a couple guys called the Fine Brothers, and they were two very ambitious Jewish businessmen that were very smart at the beginning, but they got a little cocky later on.
Gotcha.
I might touch on that later. But the general idea is that they had this idea for Choose Your Own Adventure YouTube videos.
Right.
And they partnered with a YouTube channel called The Station to create these Choose Your Own Adventure using the annotations, the built-in annotations at the time, because you could click it, link to another video, so you could give people two choices, put an invisible annotation on top of each choice, and each one would take you to a separate video.
Right.
So they had this idea. They found my work through the 8-Bit Dr. Horrible thing that I did.
So let's backtrack a little bit.
Yeah. I realized
because that's a great story
we
too.
Skipped like the most pivotal moment in my career.
Moment of his career that I was trying to get at. But let's backtrack. We'll come back to the.
So needless to say, Wawa was not fun to work at Wawa. So I was kind of on my way out of there, and a friend of mine was doing internet marketing at the time, and he got me a job doing that. So as I was transitioning from Wawa to the internet marketing, I knew I didn't want to.
Was this Dan?
Yeah, it was Dan Lowenthal. So he got me this job. Shout out to Dan Lowenthal for that little boost to get me where I needed to be, because that was the first time I ever worked from home.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
That was a crazy concept back then.
It was.
Like, working from home, like you can do that. Like now it's like,
wait, but how do you be in the office?
I know. Now people are like, I don't want that job if I can't work from home.
Yeah.
But go ahead. But so Dan hooked you up with this marketing job.
He hooked me up with the marketing job. So I was working from home, and I had a good amount of free time outside of, or even during the workday, because I basically just clocked my hours as in this task took me this long.
None of us do that.
Yeah, none of us pad our hours.
Yeah,
either,
none of us.
Which they kind of called me out on eventually.
Right.
But I was like, I just want to do a thorough job, guys.
Yeah.
That was kind of a shit show. There was like the guy who owned the company. He recently took on a partner, and the partner basically did a hostile takeover of the company.
That's right.
So I was the first to go, and then Dan went, and then the guy that trained me, Chris, he was the guy that basically taught me SEO.
Gotcha.
Back in the day, everything I knew about that, and he just left on his own accord. He's like, I'm starting my own firm. I don't want to deal with this. But because I had so much free time, I was kind of exploring a lot of different ways to create things and a lot of different things to create.
Right.
A lot of that was pixel art, painting, getting more into music and creating, either arrangements or original tracks. And it sort of started out, electronic, dance, house, whatever. I was really into like Crystal Method and Juno Reactor at the time.
Okay.
But then as always, it came back to the 8-bit. So having all this, this 8-bit music, and technically it's chiptunes.
Right.
But most people will refer to it as 8-bit music.
Sure.
But a chiptune purist will be like, it's not technically 8-bit music.
Right.
I don't care about the technicalities there, but just for like a general audience, 8-bit.
So I don't get hate mail.
Yeah. We don't want you getting.
I never do say anything that's.
We don't want you getting doxxed.
Yeah. I'd never even heard of Joe Sweeten until you actually. So that's.
Oh really?
Yeah. So Joe Sweeten came out with the Dr. Horrible sing-along blog show. That was the name of the show, right?
Yeah. It was like a film in 3 parts, I guess. I think it was, but it was a web series.
It's a web series with Neil Patrick
Harris.
Harris.
It was during a Hollywood strike.
Right.
And everybody worked for free.
Right.
And the idea was we're going to see what we can do with it, and everybody's splitting the profits or whatever, or some portion thereof. And
Where was this? This was like
2004, 5. No, it was probably later. I can't remember when it came out, but it came out a couple years before
I was married.
I did my project.
I think I was married, or at least I was dating my ex at the time.
Well, then you probably have a better gauge for when it happened than I do.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So Joe Sweeten does the Dr. Singalong or Dr. Horrible Singalong blog.
Yeah.
Who are the actors and actresses on that? I know it's Neil Patrick Harris, Nathan Fillion. Who are the
Felicia Day was the other main lead.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look this up, but yeah.
She right before that, her main thing was The Guild. She had her own like kind of online series.
Okay.
And there's a couple other actors in there that never really made a huge name for themselves, but they've been in other things.
Right.
And that was actually a really good show.
Yeah.
And it was basically about a group of people that played Dungeons and Dragons that had never met each other because they played online.
Really?
Or World of Warcraft or
something like that.
Some version of that in their world or whatever. And they all met up in real life and there was just a bunch of drama. Basically, that was the whole show. But I think Will Wheaton made an appearance on that.
Yeah, that's right.
But he played his like Will Wheaton Prime character where he's not actually playing Will Wheaton himself. He's playing a character based on himself wus's a complete and utter asshole.
Right, which was in Big Bang Theory,
where
correct?
He sleeps with her and then never wants to see her again. He's just like, I don't know, I'm a connoisseur. I don't.
Yeah.
I've already tried it. It's so bad, but he's like, that's kind of like his favorite character to play is the dickhead version of himself.
Right. Yeah. It's my favorite character to play myself too.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So you end up making an 8-bit.
Yeah.
You take the full first episode.
So I had done. It started with the soundtrack. I really like the soundtrack. You know, I mean, I guess you call it a soundtrack. It's more like a musical. You know, and so I recreated that using. That by that time I had a Nintendo,
right.
So I was able to create tracks using the actual hardware on the Nintendo with a peripheral that somebody else had made.
Right.
Figured out how to translate MIDI signals to whatever language that the Nintendo.
Once again, kids have it so easy now.
I know they have everything. I mean, in fairness, I didn't have to program it myself, but
right.
You know,
but yeah,
it's still not a plugin, but the plugins just. For me, don't sound right. Like they're good enough. I don't like shit on people that use plugins for 8-bit music, but I am a little chiptunes. I am a little critical though if they don't adhere to certain limitations that they would have.
Gotcha.
Because that to me is the value in it is the limitations of. We'll get into that later. You know, I'm jumping around too much.
It's okay.
So I did the full soundtrack using my Nintendo for Dr. Horrible Sing-Along blog. And then I was like, you know, I want to post this on YouTube, but, you know, not a lot of people are just going to sit there and watch either a blank screen or just one picture. Right. So I was like, maybe I'll do like a fun little animation.
Right.
Like a short, fun little animation.
Short, little fun animation.
And by short, fun little animation, how long? It means I spent like 4 months combined doing 3 separate, like 5 to 10-minute long YouTube videos that I posted in sequence.
Sure, yeah. That's
basically recreated the entirety of the movie.
And this is what Aiden can direct. Like, it's so funny, people that don't do stuff like this, they're like, well, it should like you'll be done like a week, right? Like, but when it comes to like artsy stuff, like recording a song in the studio or making this stuff, like people that don't do that, they're just like,
if you're a perfectionist.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
Takes twice as long, and most people don't notice.
Yeah, it also depends on how much you hate yourself as an artist too. Like when you're just like, I could do a lot better on that part.
Yeah,
it's like that one song or that one piece takes.
The older I get, the sooner I get to the fuck it moment. But at the time, I had all the energy and all the drive in the world because I forgot to mention the internet marketing thing was kind of slowing down. I was getting less hours.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, now is as good a time as I need to take all these things that I've learned during this time and apply them to something and try to make a living doing this.
Right.
And basically just go full-time freelance because I was doing a small little freelance jobs here and there while I was doing the internet marketing thing. So I was like, okay, well, let me release this. This is my portfolio now.
Right.
I put it on YouTube and it went fucking crazy viral.
Did you get like 250,000 views?
Like on the first day.
Like yeah, like
and back then that was a crazy amount.
That's still still pretty
with 0 subscribers.
Yeah, 0 subscribers.
Well, that was back before
shot in the dark.
That was back before the algorithm cut everybody off at the knees.
Yeah. Know? Well, so but you had what's her name? One of the actresses like retweeted.
A couple of them actually. Yeah. Literally the whole cast.
The whole cast was like, "Yo, this is sick,"
including Neil Patrick Harris and Joss Whedon's brother Zach Whedon, who I think did all most of the music, or at least wrote some of the songs and helped on the others. And his wife, as well was in it.
That's fun. That's all cool. It's so
she
cool.
posted it. So, but yeah, Felicia Day tweeted
Like, who from the show, everybody.
retweeted like my little tweet for it and was like, "Oh man, you're a rock star today" or something. And I think one of them said that, and then they brought so many people to my website it crashed.
Yeah. I remember us sitting on like your porch or something like that, drinking scotch,
like,
and you're
no,
like,
I think I broke this guy's website.
So, I want to say it was in the same year that you did the other College Humor one. That
it was very, very soon before that, because that's when I got approached by the Fine Brothers,
right?
Who had this idea for Choose Your Own Adventure or whatever.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing 3 of those with the station. Only the first one with the Fine Brothers, because what I didn't know at the time, but we would talk about later, was that the station kind of really like dicked them over with the contract,
right?
And they all but. I don't know what the exact details are, but they just didn't want to work with them anymore and they left.
Right.
So, but I was stuck in a contract for 3 shorts with them.
Okay.
And my contract also had the amount I was getting paid stuck.
Right.
While I was still working on the first of the 3 animations, College Humor approaches me. But there's a non-compete clause in the contract I signed with the station.
Oof.
So I'm legally not able to create any similar style videos until I'm done with the ones I'm making for the station.
Right.
But there was no dates assigned. So I read that.
You're just in limbo.
So, I read that contract front to back, and this is how I learned how to read contracts.
We'll get into that, what he does now later. Yeah.
But I read from back to front, and I realized all I have to do is finish the shorts, and I'm free.
Right.
So I literally spent the next 2 weeks solid. I accepted the project from College Humor because they didn't need it for 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. Right. And then I finished the project. I delivered the videos. I said, "We're done. pay me."
Pay me.
Because after talking with College Humor, I saw how little the station was offering me, and versus how much they could actually
what people are paying. Yeah.
With the kind of views and ad revenue that these kind of content would generate.
Yeah.
College Humor was very fair, and everybody worked there was very friendly, very fun to work for. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things about my time working for them. And then I proceeded to do 10 total shorts for them,
right?
In a TV RPG series that they put out.
Yeah. So I one time were like sitting on his porch for like a party or something like that. I'm like, dude, I had this. This is after you like start. You had the first video that went viral, and like you're starting to do 8-bit stuff for a living. And I'm just like, dude, like bravo, like that's awesome. You hear somebody that just kind of fell into something they love doing. And I was like, dude, I had this crazy dream that I was like at a concert or something like that, backstage, or like I was somewhere with people, and like Seth Rogen showed up, and we're just joking around like as I do with everybody, and like he made like a Jewish joke, and I was just like, oh, okay. And he's like, what? Like you aren't friends with any Jews? You don't hear Jewish jokes? I was like, no, like my buddy Levi's Jewish. He goes, Levi Buffum? I was like, how do you know Levi Buffum? And he just goes,
not the most Jewish name.
Yeah, he goes,
nor a Jewish name at all.
He goes, he's like, all of us Jews know each other, and he does the Seth Rogen. And then fast forward like less than a year later, are we able to play clips from this clip that we're about to show you comes up with James Franco and Seth Rogen.
Dr. Octoroc. It's a dope name.
But so that video, that was the Fine Brothers speaking in that video of them.
Oh, was it?
That's actually the Fine Brothers speaking to them, and that's the Freaks and Geeks Choosing Your Own Adventure project I worked on with the Fine Brothers after the College Humor days, well after the station.
Right.
I hadn't talked to them in a while, but they reached out and they're like, hey, we still want to do this idea.
That's awesome.
Are you down? So then it was literally just me working on this thing. So I did all the music, all the animation, all the artwork. They just wrote the script, sent it my way, and then gave me mostly artistic license to do what I wanted. They would have like small notes like, oh, can we put a cut scene here? Because it's like, break up the monotony or whatever. But basically, yeah, I did right. Well, the first one I did with Mad Men, I think. I did Mad Men. I did Saved by the Bell. Was another one I did.
That's right.
Actually, no, Saved by the Bell was first.
Which?
The Mad Men one got taken down from YouTube. Not even copyright striked.
Really?
No official channels. Apparently AMC just made a call and said, take it down, and they did.
Really?
I mean, as far as I know. But the Fine Brothers were like, well, shit, we just paid this guy thousands of dollars to make this content for us, and we can't make anything off of it.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. How many different? You said 10 videos?
Yeah, 10 total.
Gotcha.
That's everything from like Jersey Shore was the first one,
Right.
Man vs. Wild, and then we covered like Game of Thrones. I think the last one was Homeland, which didn't do too well. I kind of told them that actually.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a feeling actually when they sent me the script. I was like, I don't know anybody that watches Homeland. I can't even get into it.
I don't even know what
And
Homeland
I love
is.
that kind of like spy thriller genre. So I mean, it was a good show. Claire Danes is always amazing when she's playing a crazy person.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I kind of had a feeling it wasn't going to do well, and it didn't. And I think that's when they kind of pulled the plug on the series as a whole.
Gotcha.
But I kind of had that intuition going into it, thinking like, okay, I better start looking for work elsewhere at this point.
Right. So from there, where'd you go career-wise?
So, I mean, I had that last video, and there were probably a few months. So basically, my schedule while I was doing college humor videos, I would do 2 or 3 a year. Mm-hmm. So they'd be separated by 3 to 4 months.
Right.
And they'd send me a script and say, okay, in 4 months we want a first cut.
Right.
Basically, and I would spend the next 3 months dicking around, and then I would just get to work.
I remember.
For a solid month. Because the last video I did, I would get paid for at the end, and I would have enough to live on for 3 months without having to work, and it was amazing. I mean, that was like a dream come true for me. But I knew it couldn't last forever.
Right.
So
or should it?
I didn't necessarily get into any other kind of work at the time, but as I always do, I have an ongoing slew of hobbies.
Right.
That even if I wasn't doing an animation for College Humor, I was doing some other animation to put on my own YouTube channel, or working on, some tracks that I wasn't going to put on an album. Like I always every day I need to do something.
Right.
I need to feel productive in some way, shape, or form. It's definitely a form of like OCD or ADHD that
it's also a form of
comes out
too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering like the impulsive, obsessive nature of that side of me. Like there are creative people that just want to create, but there are people like me that like have to do something to feel like they did something.
Right.
I don't know how else to put it, but anyway, so that naturally leads me to explore things I haven't done yet, or things I don't know how to do yet. And thankfully the internet has literally all the information on the planet.
Right.
So I would just constantly teach myself new things. I was learning new, programs for animation, new programs for graphics, new programs for music. And I had done some 3D modeling before that point.
Yeah, I didn't even know anything about it. I think you were probably one of the first people that started telling me about 3D modeling.
Yeah, I mean that was the next step. But before we go too far, because I almost forgot about a whole other pivotal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about. Oh man, I'm blanking.
I also blanked.
Oh no, you did. So
I was hoping you would remember what I was going to say.
You also didn't you do some stuff for some Nerdcore artists?
Yes, that's exactly what I was about.
Yeah, that was in the back of my head. I didn't want to interrupt
This is also my single biggest regret in life.
Oh, dude, yeah.
So basically, while I was doing the College Humor stuff, between that stuff, because that stuff is very well viewed,
right?
And they're very, very good about putting credits in the title sequence, putting credits on the page, linking to the artist's website, stuff like that. So if anybody saw the video and was like, I like this guy's work, whoever did this, it was very easy to find me personally. They didn't have to go through College Humor.
Right.
And if they did, they'd send it my way. And I had a number of other YouTubers that would hire me for odd jobs. Dane Bowe was one of them. That's the guy that did the Annoying Orange. If you've ever seen that, it was kind of more for kids.
Vaguely.
It was basically a bunch of fruit with superimposed mouths and eyes, like human eyes and mouth. It was very creepy. But
lots of kids stuff. Just
they
looks like somebody did acid.
Like an actual TV show for that, and they just needed a very quick. Basically, in one of the episodes, he was playing a video game. They needed a game to be on the screen.
Right.
It was part of the script, them playing the game. So I did all the graphics that went into that particular part.
Gotcha.
Part of that episode. Dane Bowe. I'm trying to think of other people that I did work for.
You did one for a Nerdcore artist, I remember.
But Whitey Cracker, spelled YT Cracker.
Right.
Who was a hacker back in the day. Pretty sure got into some legal trouble at some point. Or at the very least, I don't know if he ever...
good he did.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think he ever had any actual charges, but he was... He
got a job out of it.
He was notorious for being a hacker.
Right.
He was known by certain government agencies, if I'm not mistaken. He can correct me on that. So he reached out and was like, hey, it was like literally the shortest shortest business related email I've ever gotten in my life. All lowercase. Just
All lowercase.
Hey man, love your work. Want to do a video for me? And I was just like, never heard of this guy before. I'd heard of a couple other. I've heard of like MC Lars and MC Fun a lot.
Yeah.
Mega Ran. I'd actually done a work with Mega Ran, like a quick track for a compilation.
Gotcha.
Before that point, but I didn't know a lot of nerdcore artists, and I wasn't really familiar with him. But I was like, yeah, man, what do you have in mind? He's like, I got this new track. I want a video. I was like, dude, do you have any idea what you want to be in the video? He's like, I don't know, some aliens or something.
some aliens or something.
Which is like, there's two types of clients. There are clients that try to micromanage every stroke of your brush, and there are clients that literally do nothing and let you go to town. Who is that kind of client?
It's the same with web design too.
And I love those kinds of clients.
Those are my favorite too, because they're like, you know what, you do this. Here's my logo. Here's my, here's what I have, and
here's what I got. And well, that's the ideal scenario when they love everything that you do immediately.
Yeah.
There's a third kind of client that is the client that has no instruction and then has a ton of feedback later that basically gives you a bunch of extra work, and then they're like, oh, is that going to cost more? I'm like, it's going to take more time, so yes, it's going to cost more.
Yeah.
But he was the second guy. He was the best kind of client. Not only that, but he paid very, very well. So the first project I did for him was
usually how it goes too. It's usually the guys that are super relaxed. They're like, and they're like,
well, what I didn't know at the time, because nobody knew what the fuck it was, this guy was like a cryptocurrency millionaire. But nobody knew what Bitcoin was at the time, except for hackers and
another life regret right there, man.
I'm getting there. So, so I do this first music video for him, and we finish it up. But I'm like a little strapped for cash because the College Humor thing kind of died down, and I haven't really gotten into anything else yet. So I'm still like very spread thin freelance sort of salary, if you can even call it that. So I was like, so he offered to pay me in Bitcoin.
How much Bitcoin are we talking?
It would have been like $4,000 or $5,000 in Bitcoin. I shit you not.
What is
in 2000 and
Aiden? What's the current price of Bitcoin right now?
Well, I don't know how much each Bitcoin was worth then.
2000, they were probably $1 back then. Nothing. It was
if it was $1.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it was $1. How much?
Right now, it's listed as $70,528.
Is it really?
Per coin. So can you multiply that by 5,000? So I can cry that many tears into this microphone. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't call it a regret, because how the fuck was I supposed to know what that was?
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, I need cash, money. I need to pay rent. But if I didn't have to worry, his reaction says it all.
Aiden is just cringing right now and looking at the number. What is it?
I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
Are you sure you want to
know? No, I actually did the conversion the other day, so I have a pretty good idea, but I want to know what the
$352 million.
$352 million.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds about right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So anyway, I could be a millionaire if I had, hindsight.
Yeah, I mean,
more hindsight.
I mean, dude, I remember they were giving Bitcoin away back then.
Yes.
If you signed up for like an email list back then, they'd be like, "We'll give you 12 Bitcoin if you just pay attention to us. We'll give you Bitcoin."
Yeah.
All right.
That was unfortunate, but it is what it is. If only.
So you didn't take the millions of dollars. You took.
So apparently, I did not get paid $300 and some million for a 5-minute animation. No, I did not.
Damn. Do you remember any? I know. Yeah, those were. That's probably all the nerdcore artists I remember. You.
Yeah, I did. I did another animation for him.
Did you?
I did one for Mega Ran. But yeah, I didn't do a lot more animation after that. I had a couple projects pretty much post College Humor. I had a few clients that would come back once in a while.
You're like, man, they keep trying to pay me in Bitcoin. It's worthless.
I don't want fake money. I want real
money.
All money is fake.
It really is.
But yeah, I didn't know what it was. I thought at the time it was everything I understood about it, or the way he described it, made it sound like it was like an internet only like digital currency that
it really was.
It was the equivalent of getting an American Express instead of a Visa card. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you ever do that unless you travel?
Right.
So I wasn't a traveler.
Yeah.
I did not know any better. But yeah, so it kind of got to this point where I didn't have a lot of animation work. But I was doing a lot more 3D modeling. That was around the time I taught myself how to use SolidWorks, which is like very different. Up until then, I'd only ever done the kind of modeling that you do for video games.
So SolidWorks or SolidWorks?
SolidWorks, no, SolidWorks.
SolidWorks, okay.
But half the time I'm texting with people from work, and anytime I say SolidWorks, it autocorrects to
It says SolidWorks.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I could go for a good Caesar right now.
Caesar.
So I taught myself that software, which is really, really good software, and it's got a really steep learning curve at the beginning, but once you learn how to do a certain number of things, all you got to do is just think of an approach to accomplish anything else. And I've very much focused on the model building portion of the software, whereas a lot of it is more about production and material sourcing and stress tests and flow simulation. Basically, it does all these things that any industrial design firm would ever need to do, up to like basically putting together a parts list in an order to just hand off to a fabrication, and they can just make it based on your model. So it can do that, but I don't use it for that. I just 3D print. So basically I got to this point where I was just doing a lot of 3D modeling for prop builders, model makers, people like that, that want very specific things that not a lot of people can 3D model because they either don't know the software to be able to build those models, or they don't know the parameters of different types of 3D printing that you would need to know in order to make it 3D printable. And still make it work for their uses, whatever they were.
And you just went on the internet and learned all that.
So yeah, I mean, SolidWorks. I already knew 3D modeling, to an extent, but I just knew the general terms. And like I said, up until then, I had only done like polygonal modeling. I'd never done solid modeling, which is a very different kind of 3D modeling, because it's kind of the difference between pixel art and vector art.
Okay.
Like vector art is infinitely scalable up or down. Solid modeling is the same way.
Gotcha.
And then you can export it for 3D printing. It'll be a polygonal model, but you can export it with a gazillion polygons.
Gotcha.
So it'll be super high resolution or whatever. So that's the comparison I would make to make it as apparent as possible. How they're different, why they're different. For anybody that isn't familiar with 3D modeling. But yeah, I mean, I essentially did this for a while, but it wasn't really cutting it. And fortunately, at the time, my brother had this friend, Adam Rosenberg, also a Jew,
also part of the tribe,
also a good man and a Jew, and he basically had been working in patent drafting for years, and he was working for this other guy, did not like his boss, did not like working for him, decided I want to start my own business, and he did just that. But around the time he started this business, or maybe a couple of years later, he was looking for other people, because it was just him by himself, just banging out drawings for all these attorneys that they were filing for patents. And it was mainly design patents at the time. He did some utility, but I think it was mainly design drawings. And he kind of honed his skill for design drawings in a manner that, like, most design drawings you look at and you're like, okay, that's a patent drawing. You look at his designs and it's like, oh, that's like art. It's like really well drawn.
Is he an art? Do you have an art background?
Yeah, he has a fine arts background.
Interesting.
He did a lot of oil painting, charcoal, stuff like that.
Really?
He actually has a more extensive fine art background than I do even.
Really?
I have more of a technical background. He has more of a fine arts background, which makes us a good team, because it means when we get clients that just want something to look pretty, but they just give us like basically real shit quality material to work from, that's where Adam shines.
Okay.
And when we get like blueprints and 3D models and stuff like that, that's when I can take it on.
Were either of your parents, like, do you guys get these attributes from either your parents?
Yeah, our mom was, and her dad as well, were both artists, musicians.
Okay.
So we definitely get a lot of the creative, habits and abilities from them.
I'm thinking about it a lot.
My grandfather drew for Archie Comics.
Really?
Back in the day, I don't know if he was an inker or what his exact job was, but I know he has worked on many issues of Archie. Yeah.
My grandfather was often mistaken for Archie Bunker. So
he
looked very much like. So my dad was born in Jersey City, so that my grandparents lived in Jersey City, and my grandfather literally like almost every day would be walking down the street and someone would be like, Archie Bunker. Like, I mean, the only reason why I know who Archie Bunker is because it's
because your grandfather.
But I mean, that was like a huge celebrity at the time, but he looked like him. But yeah, it's the older I get, the more I kind of start thinking about like, like when you know somebody, you meet their parents, you're like, okay, like that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes.
And our dad is definitely not artistic at all.
Yeah.
But he's actually a decent singer.
Really?
I don't know how much. I mean, him and my mom are both good singers. So That it might explain our love for karaoke, because my dad would always sing along to the oldies in the car.
Right. Yeah.
And then he was also a very, not like technical, like mechanical or electronics or anything like that.
Right.
But he's definitely a very logical,
Analytical thinker.
Yeah, he was a philosophy. I think he studied philosophy in college. He was an English major, and he was, I want to say, like a year shy of his doctorate before he decided to go into seminary.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I did not know until I was in high school.
Really?
At our good old Delaware County Christian School, and I was seeing mail come in that said Reverend and Mrs. David Buffum, and I was like,
what?
The fuck? Like, but that's not a reverend. I asked him about it. I was like, did you like tell them you were a reverend so they'd like you better or something? He was like, no, I'm ordained. I was like, since when? He's like, since before you were born.
That's funny. He did it for that discount. He totally did it for the discount. They gave a discount to anybody that was
Did they?
Oh yeah. Oh dude, you're dead.
Well, I'm sure he played it up.
Oh yeah, I would totally do that.
But yeah, apparently he's always been ordained. And then he apparently officiated my brother's wedding to his first wife.
Look, there's certain things. My dad's a doctor by background, but he hasn't been practicing since '92. He's like, there's certain times where you play that card, and then there's certain times where you don't let them know you're a doctor.
You do not tell them.
If you're negotiating price, he's like, like if somebody's coming to your house and they're trying to sell you on doing a kitchen remodel or something like that, you don't tell them you're a doctor.
Yeah.
He's like, but if like somebody's trying to hire you for a speaking engagement, Dr. Ron.
Doctor. Yeah. That's good advice. I definitely pick and choose when I tell people what I do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially like somebody like the kind of person who would just, I don't know what other qualities this person would have, but we both know people like this. They're just the kind of person that has ideas, but they never have any follow through. But if they find out that you work in patents like I do, they're gonna be like, oh, so I got this idea for, I'm like, dude, I just draw. I know nothing about
We know somebody like that.
But yeah, I kind of skipped the part where I got the work for Adam, but
yeah.
If we going back to that.
This is literally all of our conversations too.
This is also just all of my conversations.
Yeah.
Even if the other person is an on track kind of person, I'll steer it off course all the time. And we both do that.
We did this over the course of 3 bottles of wine last month too.
Oh, yeah.
Last month, 2 months ago now.
Is that at my cousin's house?
Yeah. While being surrounded by dogs. Yeah.
Jude and I had a night like that when we were up there for my grandmother's 101st birthday.
Yeah, and then Justin wakes up like completely refreshed and like,
of course,
come on, guys.
Yeah, let's go. I was actually up before he, or at least I was up and about. I don't know if I was awake before him, but I just wake up early when I'm not in my own bed. I don't know what it is. That's why, like, if I have trouble sleeping, at some point I'll just go down and sleep on the couch, because if I'm not in my bed, I'll wake up nice and early.
Okay.
I won't necessarily feel refreshed, but I won't be so tired that I want to go back to sleep.
I'm still trying to trick myself with that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know why it's that way, but that's just my.
So you're working with Adam now.
So he's a friend of my brother's. He actually used to be a bouncer. So my brother knows him from the Ministry, which is a bar in like Northern Liberties area in Philly that he used to go to all the time. That was like his original like super bar, right? Like the kind of bar where you always go.
Yeah,
you meet all your friends. All your friends come from
your
there.
neighborhood cheers, basically.
And yeah, Adam was the bouncer there before he. I think he did that in between working for this other guy, and before he started his own company. And then he started his own company, and there's kind of the shift in the industry of patent drafting.
Sure.
We're basically the general idea is that basically anybody who has any kind of sway over regulation, so giant companies, Apple, Honda, anybody who's a big company, it's in their best interest to make it as difficult as possible to file a patent, so that they don't have individual inventors coming up with things before they do, and then having to shell out millions of dollars just to buy the patent from them. That's a lot of lost revenue for them. So if they make it more difficult, it decreases the chances that anybody's going to beat them to certain patents.
Right.
So they
don't send all of your designs to one Chinese plant, because they
don't send anything.
They will pirate all your
patents.
Stuff.
Patents. I mean, we do some filings in China, but it doesn't matter.
They don't care.
It means nothing.
There's no rules there.
I mean, yeah, at least they're not enforced. There are laws, but they're not enforced.
Unless the Chinese government wants to enforce them. Basically.
Well, unless they enforce them, yeah. But yeah, essentially, I started doing 3D modeling for him because that I had nothing else. I was just like, that's all I was doing at the time.
Right.
But most of my clients were like, the most I could afford is like $500 or $600 for like a model that might take me a week with other work or whatever.
Right.
So it's like, that's not a lot to be like staking a freelance career. It's like, if you're doing freelance, you better be making a lot of extra income for the months you don't make anything.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
As you know, there are very, very slow months or many months.
Yeah.
So you got to have that
graphic,
rainy day fun.
I know a lot of graphic designers that do freelance, and it's.
Oh yeah. It's not only is it competitive, but yeah, it's also like you have all the basically like the smaller you are as a business, whether you're an individual or a small company, the more difficult it is to kind of keep things together.
And they don't even want to work with a company.
A lot of time.
They want to do a 1099 with like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can get a contract with a company that'll still be a 1099, but you'll get a salary because it'll be an agreed upon contract for a certain amount of time for a certain amount.
Right.
And we actually have a freelancer right now that is in a preset.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Still has a contract, but he also does contract work for us as well. So I just started 3D modeling for him. And what I didn't know at the time is that the vast majority of the projects he was sending my way were from one of their clients. And it was this is Bob Epstein, another Jew, good man, just an old school patent guy. Like this guy has been around since all patents were hand drawn.
Right. Oh, wow.
But real quick, the reason that he hired me as a 3D modeler is because of this shift in the industry where basically everything had to be up to a certain quality. Basically, they were not allowing hand-drawn patents anymore.
Really?
So everything had to be done with digital drawing software,
right.
like Illustrator. And there was also a need for, basically, there needed to be 3D model to base the majority of design drawings on, because the design drawing has to, from every angle, line up perfectly.
Right.
If you hand draw that, it's too easy to make a mistake.
Right.
And, I'm sure there was a time where it wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Right.
But like if you have a design drawing where something doesn't add up from side to side, that could lose you a court case.
Right.
If somebody infringes on your design patent
Gotcha.
and you litigate. So it's very important that using a 3D model as the base, it can't be different from any angle because that 3D model is already accounting for every piece of that geometry, whatever. And then you basically export the model and then clean it up and you have your design drawings. So it not only makes our job easier, so I was very useful. He was looking for somebody to do 3D modeling.
Right.
So I started doing 3D modeling for him and did that for a while. And then that got to a point where, like I said before, there was just one client that I was doing all this work for.
Right.
And the reason I had so much work for this guy is because the majority of his clients were independent inventors.
Right.
Whereas a lot of other clients did patents for like Boeing or Nike or Estee Lauder or whatever. All these companies that have CAD already produced for manufacturing, so they can just send it along that we can use in the design patent. It's a nice little workflow. But this guy had independent inventors, anything from they just had one prototype, to a napkin sketch.
Right.
And I would step in and do my 3D modeling thing, whether I was, recreating what they had sent me in the mail, or if I was kind of helping them design it to a degree, and we would kind of charge, a different rate for that because we're not industrial designers, we're not engineers, but we can make it look better than your freaking napkin sketch.
Right.
So I would do that a lot for that guy. Then I took a little trip out to LA, and while I was out, we lost that client. So I got back after spending a bunch of money in LA on vacation to Adam be like, hey man, so like Bob just quit or we had to let him go. I forget who made the decision to separate. I think they're having trouble working together for whatever reason. He's back now. We're good. But at the time, so I was like, well, that's like 90% of the work I was getting.
Right.
So Adam's like, well, do you want to learn how to do the illustration end of things? I was like, sure. And at the time, Adam had basically rented some office space in Northern Liberties and right off of Spring Garden.
Is that where you guys are located now?
We all work from home now.
Right, but he has an office somewhere.
Not at the moment.
No? Okay.
No, his office is his house now.
Interesting.
He actually moved out west for a couple of years and then moved back.
Okay.
So he I don't think he's ever opening an office again. I think he was a fun idea at the time. At the time he was married, he's divorced now, but at the time he was married, living in the neighborhood, and the other guy that is a full-time employee, James, also lived in Philly. They were good friends. They both worked for the other guy, so James already knew the patent stuff.
Right.
So eventually James came to work for him. So basically, it was just the three of us in this little office in Philly. I would go in 2 or 3 days a week.
Right.
Not necessarily because I had to work there, but because it's a lot easier to train somebody in person.
Right.
So I could just have him come over and look at my screen instead of having to screen share with him or whatever.
Right.
Did that for maybe not a full year, but close to it. Learned the illustration and then started drawing. So now I always have work coming in. And pretty much that's what I've been doing since that point in time when it comes to at least my career as far as a financial moneymaker, and not a hobby. You know?
Right. So, but you have done a number of releases though in the last couple of years. I know you did.
Yeah.
So do you have them all with you right now?
All the physical albums, yes.
Let's start
Yeah.
Let's. So we talked a little bit. This is the Christmas CD you did, correct?
Do we have something I can stand this up on so I don't have to hold it the whole time? You know, I should have brought one of those now playing stands. I don't have one, but I feel like I should. Yeah, that'll work.
Stand it up right in front. There you go. Yeah, he'll figure it out in post.
Yeah. So that's the first one. We already
He knows what he's doing back there.
We already talked about that one because that's the Christmas album.
Right. So they can get these on your store. Where they buy
on,
them?
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, cool.
Bandcamp.com/Dr. Octoroc.
Dr. Octoroc.
We'll
put that across the screen.
Just like, yeah.
So we talked about
you
this one.
You can spell it, but it's almost more confusing if you try.
It's far more confused. Yeah. So we talked about that one. So like, what's the next one you have over here? Perfect.
So this was kind of my foray into pressing vinyl.
This is the first one you did for vinyl?
Very first one, yeah.
Okay.
That was back in 2019.
Wow.
So not that long ago, but
it wasn't that long ago.
Still quite a few years at this point.
Yeah.
If you count the pandemic as the decade it felt like, then it was over a decade ago.
I was like, yeah, exactly.
So it was funny. So back in the day, have you ever met Paul Miles? I think you've met him. Yeah.
Absolutely know Paul Miles.
Yeah.
He actually offered me some gigs up in Boston.
Oh, nice.
I wasn't able to take them. It was like...
Well, he's actually... let me just do a quick shout because he actually has a Kickstarter going on right now.
Is he really?
Him and I guess... Well, he has a company, I guess. I don't know if we call it a company or just like a conglomerate...
a project or something.
Project. But the name of it is Team Ninja Shark, I believe. And they are putting together like a Walking Dead style comic about like zombie apocalypse.
Really?
And the whole premise is like, I guess this girl thinks her brother might be alive, and she's traveling up to Boston from, I guess, kind of our area or maybe DC. He's gonna be angry that I don't remember all the details because
very angry.
Because I'm one of the rewards is going to be a comic cover that I'm going to design.
Sick.
Do a pixel art cover for him. So he reached out to me about that. I haven't actually had the time to do it yet because work's been insane.
Sure.
But yeah, the Kickstarter is going right now. So if you're listening to this and you like cool zombie comics, check out the Taking Out the Dead.
Taking Out the Dead. We'll get those links.
Taking Out the Dead. Yeah, put that. It's up on Kickstarter right now. I believe they're got a couple weeks left in the campaign right now, and they're about maybe like 20% funded. So
Hell yeah.
I think he has a couple of like shows or conventions style things he's planned to do before the end of it. But he's definitely felt unprepared. I think after the first couple days. So back in the day, Paul Miles he was always a funny guy, and he made a comment to the extent of like, you should do like some like 8-bit Death Cab for Cutie and put that on vinyl. Hipsters would eat that shit up. And that was like the comment that he made. And I was like, that is actually a really good idea. Vinyl had not quite come back to the degree that it did by the time I put this out. And I did actually look into it. How much would it cost to do like maybe 100, to press 100 records. And obviously it costs more per record the less you do. So, but I didn't think I could sell any more than that. So I never got around to doing it. But I did do a bunch of tracks, using my Nintendo,
Right.
covers of Death Cab for Cutie songs. Had some fun doing it. But the problem that I had, and I was telling Aiden this earlier, is that I'm an album guy. I like to listen to a whole album
Yeah, same.
as a whole. And if I'm going to cover an artist, I want to cover one full album, and I want it to be complete, and I want it to be like a perfect tribute as I can make it
Right.
to that artist and that album. And usually it's my favorite of their albums.
Sure.
So I couldn't nail down which album from Death Cab for Cutie I wanted to do. I was leaning towards Transatlanticism because it's the most popular probably, or Plans. But my personal favorite is Photo Album.
Yeah.
So I was torn.
I'd have such a hard
And
time.
I was like-
I'd have such a hard time.
So I said, screw it. I did like 2 or 3 songs from every album, put them on SoundCloud just for people to find, whatever. Didn't do anything with them. But then, not too long before that is when I was living with Blaine. Well, we lived together many years
Yeah, yeah.
as
yeah.
roommates. But
Yeah.
the last couple of years we
Hetero
were
life
living
mates.
together, hetero for life. We were literally Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
But we're like kind of both Silent Bob
But yeah.
and Jay. Like
2 silent Bobs.
we talk like Jay, but we have all the interests
Yeah.
and like demeanor of
Yeah.
Silent Bob. We just talk a lot, so we can't be full on Silent Bob. So he had introduced me to Neutral Milk Hotel, and I had never heard of them before. I was like,
Right.
well, that's interesting because like I listened to a lot of adjacent music in the 90s,
Right.
but I guess late 90s is when they kind of started getting a cult following, but they didn't really have the following they have until maybe 2010, I want to say.
I never got into them.
A bunch of people just kind of rediscovered. I think what it was is Pitchfork did like a 10-year in review sort of a thing. And like saying like, and Rolling Stone I think did too, or a bunch of music blogs that are like highly viewed, highly valued, or whatever, respected. Basically took another look at this album on some anniversary and said like, we fucked up. This is a masterpiece, because they all kind of trashed it back in the day.
Right.
If I understand or remember correctly.
Very interesting how things,
Yeah.
like, you go back and you listen, you're like,
It's like
that
they
album's
were
way better than I thought.
like the album was simultaneously ahead of its time and behind its time.
Right.
So it was ahead of its time in the sense that like people approaching the year 2000 were not ready for the kind of like, I don't know what to call it. It's so somber and serious, but it kind of pokes fun at how shitty life is in a way. I don't know how to describe it. At least that's my take on the album. But whatever it was like, people were listening to like fucking Smash Mouth or something. Or I don't know. Were they out yet, or was that like
What year was this?
99 or 98?
Your Rockstar was around. Yeah. It's, walking
Yeah,
on,
1998.
walking on the sun, stuff like that. Yeah.
1998 is when the album came out. So anyway, so that I had been introduced to that album, and to be perfectly honest, I did not like it the first time I heard it, because a lot of the sounds are not inherently pleasant sounds.
Mm-hmm.
They're very interesting. They use a theremin on there. They use
Really?
very very like, I don't want to use the word grating, but they use like horns on there, and not like smooth ska horns.
Right, yeah.
Real like just raw like I don't know.
Kind of unrefined, like raspy
and
type
the whole album itself
tones
was
and stuff.
basically a garage recording. I mean,
Gotcha.
I think they did it in a studio, but it was kind of like
They wanted it to be something that was unpolished.
It wasn't
Oh,
overproduced
wait.
at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was very much a raw take or whatever.
So honestly, that's actually how I like a lot. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
I really,
I can get into both.
if the artist is good,
I personally don't love listening to live albums
really.
because I don't like hearing other people enjoying the show when I'm not there.
Oh, gotcha.
I like going to shows, but I'd rather hear a studio album than a live version of most songs, personally.
See, that Live Across the Wire for Counting Crows is like probably one of my favorite albums, period.
Yeah, there are exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
Unplugged in New York.
Yeah.
Nirvana is their best.
But that
album, in my
was,
opinion.
those were also very high quality recordings.
That's true.
Whereas, like, I listen to a lot of indie bands, so like the stuff that you're gonna find online.
I mean, it does depend on how loud the crowd is.
Yeah.
If they're mixed in too well.
Yeah.
Then it's like I'm hearing people screaming and I'm not hearing every note of the song.
Right. Yeah.
I feel
Exactly.
like I'm missing out.
I don't want to hear all that. Yeah.
And I also, because of the way I am as a musician, as an artist, is everything is very meticulously placed, and a lot of artists can be the same way. And I want to hear the work they put in. I don't want to miss any of
Right.
it, or I want to miss as little as possible.
Right.
So I'm always going to prefer that. But anyway, so I gave it a couple more listens a little later on around that time, and I was like, this actually is a really good album, and I really started to love the album itself. And you know, I listened to some of their other music. It didn't hit me the same way. They only have like one other full album, to my knowledge. They have like EPs and singles and other things. But basically, like as soon as they got the amount of like fame that they got after In the Airplane Over the Sea came out, Jeff Mangum was just like, nah, I don't want this. He just didn't want it. He loved making the music. He loved performing, but he didn't like any of the attention.
Gotcha.
And hey, that's as is his right.
There's an artist here that I grew up with in town, Desiree. I believe her last name is Coke. It's like Cock. My old drummer Dylan played like some percussion for her. Gorgeous, haunting vocals and like pretty good songwriter. And
Portishead haunting.
I don't even know how to describe her vocals. Like just beautiful, but like sad. Like just rich.
That's Portishead. Yeah.
And
like Portishead.
and I have, it's like my favorite, like most coveted prized possession. It's on my phone, and it's like 3 songs that she put up on YouTube of her just recording it. I think 2 are just like her recording with an acoustic guitar in her room, and then one was like one that she recorded with a recording program, and they're all amazing songs, and she literally took them down. She wants me to erase them. She hates them.
Oh, no.
She will never perform. She is basically like, I don't know if they're engaged, but they've been together with the lead singer of this band called Last Full Measure, and they're a local band, and Brendan has been putting out music for, I want to say, a decade and a half, and very David Bazan, very like kind of like dark, haunting male vocals too. And she won't do any music. Like he's literally like, come on, put out some music. She wants nothing, like just doesn't want that attention at all.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, to be fair, that's kind of the boat I'm in. Not that I necessarily want like a limited reach, but I definitely have little to no interest in ever playing any kind of live show or, you know,
I get it, man. There's
traveling,
a lot that goes a lot that goes into it. I get it.
A lot, yeah.
I get it.
I just like sitting in my house and making an album, and
I get it.
headphones on.
We have the digital medium.
Only distraction is my dog.
Right. So
Every time he rings that damn bell.
God, yeah. So for you guys that don't know, so Levi had we both bought dogs around the same time. He had what kind of corgi was Ein?
Pembroke Welsh corgi.
Pembroke. And now he has a Valhound.
Swedish Valhound.
Valhound, which is they don't look real.
It's a wolf corgi basically.
They don't look real. It literally looks like a micro wolf. They're gorgeous.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's either like a corgi mix, usually with a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Or just a straight up corgi.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people be like, "Oh, look at the corgi."
It almost looks like
I want to be like, "He's not a corgi."
Yeah. It's almost like they took like an American Eskimo and mixed it with like a Shepherd and a corgi. And it's like you're like, how do they do that?
They're an old ass breed. I mean, there is like them and corgis are like thousands of years old. Vikings had both of them.
Really?
They're like Viking dogs, oddly enough, but they're all purpose working dogs, which means they have all the abilities of lots of different breeds, but it also means they have all the problems.
All the problems.
The main one is separation anxiety, and he has been that has been a challenge. But otherwise, he's fantastic. He's super smart.
Our fur kids. All right, so tell me about this next one you got here.
So real quick though, just finish the story on the Nutri-Milk Hotel one. Is I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. No idea what I was doing. This was before they even had the pre-launch page as an option. You would just do all your own marketing and then send people to the page. But you didn't have somewhere on the Kickstarter site you could send people to say like, hey, click this button and it'll let you know when it launches. Right. Which is the best tool ever. And so I just kind of grinded the whole time it was on Kickstarter, and like the funding chart for the campaign is as straight a line as you can get from 0 to just over 10,000 is what I ended up raising. The goal was 5,000. Because at the time I had like kind of like a minimalistic approach, like, okay, cheapest pressing plan I can find, cheapest everything, and then every stretch goal will improve the quality and increase the cost. Right. And that was kind of the model I used. So I figured, okay, 5,000 should be a good number. And I was talking with my buddy Dan Collins, who you also know. Dan. Yeah. He actually did the video for the Kickstarter. Okay. For me, and he's done every video since then. But he's kind of getting a little too big. I'm getting a little worried that he won't have time for me on the next album. We'll see. He always makes time if he can. It's not like, not that sort of thing. He just is literally too busy. He's like traveling all the time. He Did work with Dolly Parton at some point.
Really?
Yeah, had like his own documentary he released.
I have another buddy that just worked with Dolly Parton too. Alex Sadek's brother.
I
Anthony
think Dolly
Sadek.
Parton just worked with a lot of people because she's cool.
Oh, she's still touring and doing stuff. She is cool.
She's cool as shit. But yeah, so
So
it ended up getting funded, did really well, and it was basically a proof of concept. Like, okay, yes, I can raise $10,000 for a chiptunes album on vinyl.
right.
And so I was like, okay, well, let me start thinking about.
Proof of concept, really.
I started thinking about what album I want to do next, and I had a couple ideas in mind, but I was like, because I knew part of the success came from the cult status of that album,
Right.
and the passion of the following.
Right.
Not a lot of bands have that.
No.
And not a lot of the bands I like have that.
Right.
Even fewer, so it was kind of hard to find the right band. But what's interesting is while I was running the campaign, I did some Facebook ad runs, and one of the ads was seen by a guy that had a year or so previously started a record pressing plant down in Georgia.
Or in Georgia, yeah.
And as coincidence would have it, the pressing plant was in Athens, Georgia, which is literally where Neutral Milk Hotel is from. That's where they all grew. It was basically in the 90s, you had fucking Seattle for grunge, and then you had Athens, Georgia for everything else.
I mean, dude,
It's a college town, and it's
some of my favorite.
a lot like Phoenixville, actually.
A lot of my favorite bands actually come from that area. We got Manchester.
A lot of bands come from that area.
Yeah, Manchester Orchestra is from that area. They actually do the big concert series called The Stuffing, and it's like the night before Thanksgiving. Another band that's really big right now called Microwave is from there. But yeah, it's a cool spot. But.
So just about a sheer coincidence, this guy saw my ad, really liked the project, and said like, "Hey, like we would love to press your album." Obviously, didn't offer to do it for free. He was just saying, "Hey, like I don't know if you found anybody yet." And I was like, "I did and I didn't." Like I found, I found a service.
I'm open to options.
I'm open to options. And I was like, all right, let's see what kind of price you can get me. And he's like, oh, we can definitely beat whatever you're going to pay. So I did that, and then I thought it'd be fun to take a little road trip down there, meet the guy, establish that relationship in person, pick up the records in person too, because that was like my baby. It was my first album, like physical album on vinyl. And I was like, it was like getting close to summertime. I was like, I'm not sure if it's going to do well in the heat. I just had all these concerns.
Yeah.
Again, still proof of concept. So me and my friend Ian took a road trip down there, and what's funny is he had just bought a new car, and I had a feeling that he wasn't going to ask me to drive at any point because he just got the car.
He just got a new car.
So he ended up doing all the driving, and like I won't get into like it's a whole other story, but like essentially we drove 26 hours in the span of 72 hours.
Wow.
So it was a rough trek, and he did all the driving. So, and this is a test of our friendship.
Right.
The last half hour of the trip, it was pouring rain, and we were trying to follow some really confusing directions in the middle of construction on like 76, which is the worst goddamn highway in the Philly area. And it wasn't until that last half hour with all those conditions that we almost broke, but we made it. We're still friends. But anyway, it was
just don't drive together.
Never again that far. Maybe like to one state away, but not a 26 hour.
We want to choke Justin like 40 minutes into the trip.
I know.
It's like we're like in the car for 5 minutes. He's like, are we there yet?
Or we almost lose him.
Or we lose him.
He just wanders off.
Every Starbucks we stop at.
He sees a Starbucks and just gets out of the moving car, like Jurassic Park.
So you pressed this with them, and then
I pressed it with them. It went really well, and then while we were in Athens, so I make it a point that anytime I'm in a new town, like there's a lot of like fun little small towns, like Doylestown.
Siren Records is really cool.
Doylestown is one of them. I've been to that record store. So there was a record store. Actually, there were two record stores in Athens, but the one I went into, I was looking through the records, and I was like, oh, I found the Soft Bulletin by the Flaming Lips. And I was like, shit, that's it. That's the next album I want to cover.
Oh.
I love this album. It's got a lot going on it. It'd be a lot of fun
to
try to do. The other thing is the Neutral Milk Hotel album is just a Nintendo on that album.
Right.
I had yet to really learn how to manipulate the Game Boy the same way that I could with the Nintendo and the coding behind that and all that. And I didn't have the peripheral for it yet either, like the technology that I could hook up my computer to the Game Boy. But I was like, okay, now I'm going to have to because they have an orchestral backing on the album. So.
Right.
So that ended up being the next one I decided to do. And that has... Oh, last thing on that is because this guy, the record pressing plant is in Athens, and this guy has lived in Athens his whole life, he's friends with like half of the band.
Right.
So we actually sat down with. Oh, I'm not supposed to mention his name. Can we actually bleep that out? I'm actually not kidding. Because I'm telling you, they're all so private because the fan base is insane that like if you so much as mention their name, then people will try to contact that person that mentioned their name and be like, oh, give us email, like stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, dude. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, needless to say,
Dude, when I guitar tech for Scott Stapp in September, like I posted something about it, and this girl was like, "Can you?" I was like,
yeah.
I was like, I literally haven't met him. I don't know him.
I don't think it's that.
I was like, I can't intro. I was like,
it's a huge deal.
How about I get this job done?
To mention it 5 years later, but
I was also like, I don't know this girl. It's just some girl that follows me online.
Definitely at the time, my guy at the record pressing plant, Cash, was like don't mention his name anywhere. Just say a guy. So anyway, so that was a cool story. So with the Flame Lips one, Kickstarter went well, and I was also able to get in touch with Scott Booker, who's the Flame Lips manager.
Okay.
And I sent him a bunch of copies of the album. I mainly got in touch with him to clear the likeness.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Rights because
that was going to be a question.
Because basically I had a bunch of art prints as part of the Kickstarter to that featured them on it, and it was like pixel art, but I just wanted to play it safe. And he was like, as long as none of the photographs were taken by Wayne's ex-wife, it's fine.
Just not get the ex-wife.
I was like, no, actually, the majority of the photos I used, with the exception of one, were taken by the artist that actually did the original album artwork and still does. I think he still does the album artwork.
A lot of those big
George
guys,
Salisbury.
A lot of those big bands use.
So I was able to
same
talk
artists over
talk with both of them and get in touch with them about it, and he gave albums to everybody in the band. Gave one to Wayne. Wayne said he liked it. Wayne Coyne, and then later somebody else that had gotten the album through the Kickstarter posted it on Instagram, and Wayne Coyne just commented a bunch of hearts underneath it. I was like, yes, thank you. So that was a really cool experience because it was a little bit more personal.
Sure.
And like it felt more connected.
Right.
And I was like, okay, it happened once, it happened again. Maybe I can do that again, which brings me to the next one, which is the Beck album. So this is Beck's Sea Change, and this one was really therapeutic for my roommate because she was going through a rough time. I'm not going to mention any details or names, but basically listening to that album like just centered her. And she was used to like Odelay Beck.
Yeah.
She was not really familiar with the somber side of Beck.
What's
and
that like?
the,
like stuff
the
all over the place.
Beck,
Oh yeah.
So she listened to that album for the first time with the lyrics, and it was very therapeutic for her. And because of that, she actually like oddly loves chiptunes now. Not really as a genre,
right?
But she loves hearing my versions,
right? Because
she heard all of my versions of this album, or my version of this album, before she heard the original album in full,
right?
So she actually was like, it's like it went the other way for her. She heard the cover first, which happens.
It's interesting, yeah.
But usually not with chiptunes.
Not with chiptunes. Usually doesn't have with chiptunes like that.
But I mean, unfortunately, this one I wasn't able to really reach out or get in touch with anybody. I was but it was a little disappointing just because I had done it before. It felt so easy to accomplish at that point.
Right.
And then when I wasn't able to do it, which should be the norm, let's be honest, it should be the norm that you can't get in touch with people that are in a really well-known band and just have a conversation with them. They generally don't want that.
Right. They generally don't.
So the fact that it happened at all to any degree, twice before was probably a coincidence. But we did go to see Beck last summer at the Man, and part of me was this close to bringing it up and just throwing it up on stage while he was playing.
So he like, you don't know whether he's
as far as I know, yeah. But you have to think he'd appreciate it because he uses Game Boys on some of his tracks.
Maybe we're gonna have to do a little shout out for a short with for Beck, get his attention with this one.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do it. But so do you have anything planned for the future? Do you have anything coming next?
Well, I do. So I have. On the tube. I do have another Kickstarter planned for next summer, but I actually just released a digital only album. Okay. Which is basically just Bo Burnham's comedy special Inside. Really? It was kind of a whim where I was working on the next album, the next vinyl release, and I just kind of hit a wall where I was like, I'm just not motivated right now. And I just decided to watch Inside again because that was like I've watched it a few times. I love it. I think it's a masterpiece comedy special, and I think it's one of the most unique things that ever came out of like an individual,
right?
In that manner, especially somebody that like Bo Burnham. I've never really paid attention to him before. I
haven't either.
I didn't dislike him. I didn't like him.
Right, same.
I think he was a little too not too young, but like it was a little after my time, so to speak.
Right.
Like I was used to like the Adam Sandlers and
Sure.
whatever. And I also generally don't like musical comedians.
Yeah.
Because the comedy is always before the music. And I prefer the music over the comedy a lot of times. But for whatever reason maybe it was the pandemic. Maybe it was because I watched it with my girlfriend. Maybe, I don't know what it was, but that particular special just like, I was like, I fucking love this.
Right.
Like from a place in my heart I didn't even know existed. I love this.
Okay.
And appreciate this from an artistic and musical perspective. So just on a whim, I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just do some 8-bit versions of these songs. And then I just decided to do the whole album.
Nice.
So that I just put that on Bandcamp a couple days ago. And apparently there's not a huge overlap between people who like that special enough to listen to an 8-bit version and people that also listen to 8-bit music. So I am struggling with sales right now, but I finished making kind of a music video, pixel art music video. I'm just waiting for Netflix to drop the copyright strike so I can actually post it on YouTube.
Oh, because what's going on with the copyright?
So I created a music video, and I basically took some stills from the
Bill Burnham,
the portion of the white woman's Instagram track from the special, and made pixel versions of them. So they're all very low resolution, limited colors, all that. You know, they're all hand drawn. It's not like I just screenshotted the actual video and put that in my YouTube video, or took portions of the video itself. But apparently, the content recognition system thought it was the actual video.
Right.
The music's fine. The music's not a problem. I can still.
Gotcha.
But there's a certain portion of the video that the like auto content detection software or whatever is just like, that's the actual thing. I was like, I didn't realize my pixel art was that good.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, I will be posting that soon, and hopefully that'll garner some more, enough views to get more people to see the album. But so far, everybody seems to be enjoying it, even if they're not downloading it. They still appreciate it, which is all I care about.
Right.
All I care about at this point is just making back the royalties.
Right. Yeah. So you had to pay out the royalties ahead of time.
No, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't a lot because it's only a digital album, and I'm doing 300 copies like I do for my Kickstarter.
Yeah. So I did a Me Without You cover once. I just paid a buddy that had a studio, and in fact, one of the guys that's in this band called Four in Hands is like a bigger hardcore band. He played violin on it. Like I didn't know he even played violin, but that's when that's what I wanted to ask you was I started looking into that, and it was like, oh, if you're gonna sell 300 copies, here's what it is. It was it's a very interesting world, the music business, because like most musicians just they're like, I don't want to do any of that, and that's how a lot of them get screwed over. But like people like,
I've seen a couple of horror stories when it came to either copyright or royalties where people have just basically had their life ruined, and I'm like, I'm not taking any chances.
Yeah.
Also, the original artist deserves to get paid.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I like them enough to cover them, I should probably also like them enough to pay them for using their music in my own. Because let's be honest, the draw of these Kickstarters isn't my skill as a musician. Right. Yes, I do implement my own abilities.
Right. You're creative your own take on
vision, but most people are listening to these because they like the original album.
Yeah, so
I depend on those artists existing in order to be anything, when it comes to these.
There's a guy right now that's you might find this interesting. There's a guy that's going around doing all the older like Tooth and Nail albums, like Further Seems Forever. And I think he just did it might have been Emery, but he's doing like a lullaby version. So it's literally like it sounds like a music box, but he's doing the music and making it sound like lullaby music, like go to sleep. It's real. It's not something I'm probably gonna sit there and like. Actually, maybe I'll put it on before bed. But like, it's not something. I think I put it on while I was driving back from Florida. I was like, dude. Change this. I was like, it's good, but like
that's what I have cigarettes for.
Yeah,
that's my fall asleep music.
Yeah, exactly. You got anything else you want to mention before we wrap up? I'll
just throw out the next album is going to be Illinois by Sufjan Stevens.
Really?
And that this one might kill me. It might be my last.
Really?
I don't know. I had it in my head that I wanted to do 10 albums total and then be done, but this will be my 4th, and I might make it my last depending on how it goes. Just because it's a monster undertaking. It'll be 4 records, 22 tracks, so over an hour of music, and I'm up to like maybe track 8 or 9 on the album.
Right.
In my covers of it.
Right.
And also the royalties are a lot.
Gotcha.
Because there's 22 tracks, but basically royalties is up to 5 minutes you pay one amount, and over 5 minutes you pay prorated per minute.
And does he have a lot of
so
minutes?
Every track on that album, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, is either like 20 seconds long or 8 minutes long. So literally, if you were designing an album to net you the most royalties possible, you would do what Sufjan Stevens did with Illinois. That obviously was not his intention. He's a fucking genius, this guy.
Yeah, absolute genius.
And he's amazing at everything he does. Like he plays half the instruments on this goddamn album.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen. I haven't listened to that album.
That is probably one of the best albums of all time, in my opinion. At least contemporary.
Gotcha.
You can't compare him to like Marvin Gaye or Jimi Hendrix, but at least in our lifetime, probably one of the best albums of all time, at least musically, lyrically. It's just a masterpiece all around.
Go back and listen.
So
to that
this might be my just like high note to just.
I'm gonna throw it out there, but part of the show is gonna be also doing collaborations and stuff because I've got my own studio going on.
All right. Well, as long as I don't have to run a Kickstarter and.
Well, what I'm saying is
hundreds of records. I'm fine.
What I'm saying is I'm trying to use my poll with my friends. It's like, let's collaborate on something, so that way, like, my followers will follow your stuff. We got, now I can post like this guy's got this.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
So that's kind of what this podcast.
I thought you were trying to make an argument for me to do more after the next one.
I'm not going to argue.
Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, I'm gonna let you decide what you want to do, but I'm here to help. So
you're gonna do what
part of this podcast is going to be putting out some tunes with people. So if you want to collaborate on something, we'll write something and we'll just record it. You don't have to go. You don't have to come in and play it.
Have you ever sung on a chiptune track before?
We don't have to go out and play it live. So you don't have to worry about that. But maybe we'll do a live thing in the studio session or something like that. We'll figure it out. But we'll make something weird. I don't know.
I'm just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Yeah, like let's disappoint our teachers and our parents. I don't know.
Oh, I can never disappoint Unger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unger loves me. Always has.
So, dude, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you were like you're honestly like when I started thinking about this show, like you were like of all the musicians I know that I like that tour and do stuff. I was like, I gotta have Levi on, man.
Yeah. No, I was wondering. I was like, I wonder how many episodes he's gonna wait before you ask me, because I know you're gonna have me on at some point. And then that day you texted me, I didn't even see the content of the text. I just saw a text from you. I was like, he's asking me to be on the podcast.
I didn't even look at my phone. It just came up and I saw you said like, I knew what you were texting me about. I just saw it on my watch and it was just like.
Yeah, no, anytime, man. I will always come by when you want.
Oh yeah. So you can check him out online. He's got stuff. We'll post all those links. But you have been watching Off the Record with Luke Eccles. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, man.
Bye.